Let's
Don't
hear
we
it.
all?
No, we're not.
I'm speaking for myself.
No, not even you, Camden.
Yeah, I had an eye exam today and dilated and all the stuff. It's still bothering me.
Are you okay?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Yes. But the glare, I could barely see.
Yeah, he can't see anything, but he feels good.
Yeah, I can't see anything.
If you can't see it coming, it won't hurt as much. Hey, Sal, you been keeping a secret over there, huh?
I know.
That airport deal, didn't want to tell anybody.
I was sworn to secrecy.
Yeah,
We got the mayor email.
Yeah, wait till we start getting East Haven email.
Everybody wanted it not to be on the city account. Well, now it's going to be off the account.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah, no subsidy anymore.
No, but less input from the public, because within the fence line, they can do whatever they want.
Now, they were talking about moving the tower to East Haven side, right?
No, and the tower's already there. It's the not the tower,
The terminal.
terminal. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's what I meant, terminal.
3 years. And then if you look at my picture, on either end of the runway, that's where they're gonna extend the runway within the fence line.
Yes.
So it's 1,000 feet both ways.
You know what? They should do what they did in Japan years ago. They had an airport. It was like this near the water. What they did, they built it out to the water, the landing strips. I guess it's still there, so I guess it didn't sink, but they filled it all in and made the airstrips right out over the water.
Kind of scary. It's like flying into JFK and you're about to land and you're near the water. It's like, ah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Logan Airport is terrifying. I don't know if you ever fly.
Yeah.
I think flying into Vegas is worse because you come over the mountains, then you just drop right down in.
You know what? Right now, I'll fly anywhere.
Yes. I know. I have.
Anyway, you know what? It's 6:03. I just want to remind everyone we are live on YouTube.
Oh, geez. See, told you.
I will give it a couple more minutes. I mean, we could technically start, but I'll give it a couple of more minutes because I need our presenters here as well. And I don't see Giovanni on yet.
Chair Pesca, I think he is here.
Oh, is he?
He's in the waiting room.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, good. Okay. Talk about seeing. I have new glasses and I can't see with them. So, and I've gone back and still can't see. Maybe that's a good thing. I'll give it one more minute and we will start. Misty, if you're on and we need to hit record, I'm going to start the meeting. Thank you. Good evening. Board of Alders notice, New Haven, the City Services and Environmental Policy Committee of the Board of Alders will meet on Thursday, May 6th, 2021 at 6 p.m. via video conference at https://bit.ly/32wvztw and by phone at 646-558-8656, webinar ID 983-7718-2179 to hear and act on the following items. For required password, contact public testimony at newhavenct.gov. Item number 1, LM-2021-0119, order of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the mayor to sign project authorization letters, PALs, for Lighthouse Road, South Frontage Road, Quinnipiac Avenue, Valley Street, Whaley Avenue, and Whitney Avenue, utilizing local transportation capital improvement program, LOCIP funding. Item number 2, LM-2021-0184, order of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the city engineer to install new sidewalks per section 27-102. Item 3, LM-2021-0186, order of the New Haven Board of Alders concerning the communication from the Environmental Advisory Council requesting a public hearing on solid waste disposal and management. Per order, Honorable Anna M. Festa, Chair, attest Honorable Michael Smart, City Clerk. These items are on file and available in the office of the City Clerk, room 202 at 200 Orange Street, New Haven, CT 06510. For accessibility-related accommodations, please call 203-946-7651V or 203-946-8582 TTY/TDD. Public comment testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. If you wish to present testimony at the meeting, you must register in advance at https://bit.ly/32wvztw or by calling 203-946-7934 or emailing publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting for the required password. Public can view the meeting at https://bit.ly/32wvztw or listen by phone at 646-558-8656. Webinar ID 983-7718-2179. The password to listen by phone only is 22556266. Welcome, colleagues. At this time, I will have everyone introduce themselves. I am Anna Festa, the chair of CSEP, and I am the alder in Ward 10. Co-chair, Sal DeCola.
Vice Chair Sal DeCola, Ward 18.
Alder Antunes.
Gerald Antunes, Ward 12.
Alder Roth.
Abby Roth, Ward 7.
Alder Winter.
Stephen Winter, Ward 21.
Alder Singh.
Hampton Singh, Ward 5.
Great. Welcome, colleagues. I recognize Alder Adam Marchand as well as on the call. At this time, we will call the first item. So I welcome our city engineer, Giovanni Zinn, to present items number 1 and number 2. Welcome, Mr. Zinn. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My name is Giovanni Zinn. I'm the city engineer. I reside at 95 Soundview Terrace here in New Haven. The first item before you authorizes the mayor to sign project authorization letters related to various of our major corridors projects. This is sort of the first wave here. I'll be probably filing very shortly to have a second batch before you. So this is under the Local Transportation Capital Improvements Program of the state of Connecticut, which is administered through the Regional Council of Governments. And this is for $14.3 million to fund improvements, complete streets improvements by and large. to the roads that had listed before, Lighthouse in no particular order, Lighthouse Road, South Frontage Road, York Street, Quinnipiac Avenue, Valley Street, Whaley Avenue, and Whitney Avenue. The program requires towns to or municipalities to fund 100% of the design costs, and then it funds 100% of the construction costs. We do a lot of our own design work, but do also require surveying and some other items, and that any design costs are paid out of the streets capital line item in the engineering budget, which is approved by the Board of Alders in the current fiscal year. Obviously, it was 2 years ago. With that, we've had our initial round of public meetings on most of these. We're working hard on design. I think some of you have been to some of these meetings, so I think you have a sense for what we're trying to do here. These are opportunities to not only improve the safety of our streets, but also do some really big ticket items like paving and sidewalks that otherwise would have to come out of the city's capital budget. So there's a lot of benefits here to the city, and we look forward to seeing these projects over the next couple of years go through. With that, I guess if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Zinn. And yes, I know that you had community meetings around the city, and I appreciate it since this is something that we have been looking forward to for a couple of years now, particularly, in our areas. My area, of course, would be the Whitney Avenue one, and we've heard a lot about other parts of the city as well. So thank you for your work with this. Look forward to this project. At this time, I'll go through the list of questions for my colleagues. So Vice Chair DeCola, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time.
Ms. Alder Antunes.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Alder Roth.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Giovanni. I do have a few questions. Obviously, I think this is great that you're doing this. I'm very excited. We need a lot of infrastructure improvements, definitely in these locations. I guess my first question is just to get a sense of, and maybe you don't have the answer, just the time, like the order, will they be done simultaneously, these streets? Will you prioritize them in some order? And what is the length of time approximately you think it will take to get through these projects?
So I think a lot of that is still to be determined as we go through design. The size of the streets and the size of the projects vary. Also the complexity, anytime signals are involved, even if we're not altering the signals, any altering to the lane configurations or anything like that adds a lot of design time. Alder Smith is here. I'm sure she'll be happy to hear. Valley Street is, I think, one of the most straightforward because we don't have any signals. And I think we'll be going back for our follow-up public meeting here shortly. We'll be in touch, Alder, to set that up. Conversely, something like Whaley Avenue, which is a far more larger and far more complicated project, that has a lot more design effort. So we're cranking through that. I think the first of these we'll see next year, and probably the year after. So I'm looking at about a 2-year time frame to start construction. Construction will stretch probably from 3 to 4 months on some of the simpler projects to as much as a full construction season on some of the bigger projects.
Great, thank you. That's helpful context. I guess my second question, turning to Whaley Avenue, I believe this is for Whaley Avenue from Elagrassa Boulevard towards Broadway. Is the further end, is that State Road? Where I'm just thinking
it is a state road, yes. Yep, it is a state road after the boulevard. And
so that's why this can't be used for those areas where there's been so many.
Yeah, I think there's also a feeling that the state needs to fund that separately, not take money out of the municipal pot, if you will, to fund improvements on their state roads.
So they would pay for the design work as well, is what you're saying?
Yeah, also, LOTSIP is a program that's meant to go to the municipalities. So I think we would want to prioritize spending on our own roads.
Got it.
Rather than somehow give it back to the state so that they could spend it on their own roads.
Okay. And then actually I have a few more questions. I'll ask one more for now. And this has to do with one of the roads that's partially in my ward, which is the York Street South Frontage Road area. And I do, we haven't had a recent meeting. I know part of that is 3 raised crossed intersections at Howard, at Park, and at York. I guess I don't know actually if the amount of money that's in there, what beyond those raised intersections, will there be sidewalks constructed where there's missing sidewalks now?
I think we're looking at doing a bit of missing sidewalk. I believe also the Air Rights Garage possibly has some funds for that as well. Working with Doug on that. And then we're talking internally on how the striping and configuration of York Street ties into this as well, which is why we haven't seen that, necessarily a public plan that incorporates all of that yet. We're still figuring that out.
Okay, got it. I appreciate that. I will defer to my colleagues, and then maybe if we do another round, I just have a few other quick questions. Thanks so much. And thanks for pushing for this money. As I said, it's so needed.
Yep.
Thank you, Alder Roth. I just want to note for the record that Alder Smith has joined us. Welcome, Alder Smith. I will move on now to Alder Winter. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Zinn. So can you say which streets you expect to start on this summer?
I don't think I said that any I was going to start on this summer.
Oh, you're not starting. Okay, maybe I misunderstood.
Not construction, no. Next year.
So construction next year, and you start on all of them next summer?
We still have to go through design. We still need to have more community input on the final designs. We've done our first round for these streets. And so once we have a finalized design, then it has to get reviewed by the state of Connecticut. Then we'll be able to give you an exact schedule.
Okay.
So I can't speak for the community on what their input is. It could be possible that we come back with a design and they say, oh, this is awful. And so suddenly the order, is all out of order.
Okay. And in terms of the design, the design feedback cycle, like there was a session in Whitney Avenue and a couple people have asked me when would they have something to give feedback on?
Yeah, we're trying very hard on Whitney to schedule something by the end of the month. We're 2 feet shy basically on a lot of our different schemes in terms of roadway width. So we're really trying to figure that out. We're also working with traffic and parking on some of the turn lane pockets, which are challenging. Which ones we need to keep, which can we eliminate any of them in order to fit all the competing uses. Valley Street, for example, is I think ended up being a far more straightforward design. So we're ready to go back out on that. We already did our round of internal comments and now are circulating our improved concept. But I would hope that, either it may leak into the first or second week of June at the latest, but we'll be back out there on Whitney Avenue shortly. And I think that's very close to the timeline we gave. I think May was the timeline that we gave at the time.
And is the timetable similar for the other streets?
Yeah, I think we had said that we need a little extra time on Whaley at the public meeting, but the rest we're trying to push in that time frame. I mean, Quinnipiac Avenue, we've already had a few different rounds of public input. Lighthouse, I think we're getting close. Yeah, I think that covers them.
Thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Winter. Alder Singh, any questions?
No question at this time, Madam Chair.
Alder Smith?
I don't have any questions, Madam Chair, but I just would like to thank Mr. Zinn. The meeting in which that he held, the community meeting was an awesome meeting. It was very thorough in regards to what to expect. And you were very open by listening to the residents of what they were looking for. And I think it's going to be a really, really good what I'm trying to say here. Plan. I'm sorry, I had a brain fog. Please forgive me. It would be a great plan in which that you have that will accommodate that community in which that is really needed. The tables in which that has been laid forth for that will be perfect. I'm satisfied of what we have had within the meeting. And I just want to say thank you to you and your staff. Very patient, very, respectful to those residents. And I believe they understood a little bit more than what they ever have known before during that meeting. So I want to say thank you very much for that meeting. And I'm looking forward to the changes to happen within my area and the other portion of it, the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Smith. Thank you for all of your help in getting that meeting set up and getting the residents out there. I always like to say that we might be the technical experts, but the residents are the experts of their neighborhood. They understand what the traffic patterns are, what the issues are, and it's very informative and invigorating to be able to get that communication directly with residents on their streets. I look forward to being able to go back to our walking meetings where we walk the streets all together. Those are very helpful.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Smith. Mr. Zinn, now we're basically authorizing to receive this money tonight. There's still a lot of work, it sounds like, that needs to be done. So will you be, once the designs are actually designed, you'll be coming back to the community? Is that what the plan is, to review it with them?
Yes, yeah. So we will continue to have community meetings organized with the alders of the areas for each of the streets to do that. Yes.
Okay. And I guess the design phase takes how long? I know that we want to start next year with these projects, but the design phase is what length of time?
Well, I think it depends again on both the size of the project, the complexity of it, and the feedback we receive, right? So, some of the smaller streets are the ones that don't have signal impacts, really. Valley Street, for example, is a rather lengthy street, but really doesn't have much in the way of signals. That's probably start to end is probably 4 months, 5 months, something like that. It's not full time. It's part of the project managers and designers workload. Something like Whaley will take probably through the end of the year to finish up design.
Will these projects be worked on simultaneously, or any of them simultaneously?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything preventing them from being in construction simultaneously, and I would expect probably to have a couple of them going at any one time once we get started.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Go ahead, Alder Roth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had two other questions. The first one, and maybe you can't answer this one, Giovanni. You said soon you were going to be coming with a second batch of streets. Are you able to share what those additional streets will be?
I actually just got emailed yesterday the list from the COG. I've got to look through it, and to be honest with you, I haven't had a chance to look through it in detail, but it's more of our commercial corridors, big streets in town. I think Dixwell and Whaley, Dixwell and Grand, looking at some traffic calming there. We've done the pavement rehab and some of the sidewalk work in the not too distant past. I don't want to go through a list because I don't remember them off the top of my head. I don't want to leave any of them out. So
sure.
And then this is a program that the legislature continues to fund going forward. So I think there are opportunities there as well. So I think State Street as well is one of them that's been kicking around for a bit. Has some pretty significant design challenges.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's okay. I'll stay tuned on that. And I guess my only other question is, you said obviously it makes complete sense to do this, but I am curious. You talked about the design cost that falls on the city, and that's in the capital budget. I'm just curious. I have no sense. Some of it's, you said in-house, but some just what the amount is. And now that we're about to vote on sort of a 2-year budget, and there's lots of big projects going on, just making sure we have how much money we put in that capital budget to cover that.
Yeah, we were able to keep it relatively modest, especially on projects that we're able to do a lot of work ourselves. it probably is, $250,000 or something like that at the end of the day. For a lot of for all these projects sort of some of them require nothing. Some of them will require some traffic volume studies and signal work. Signal work is something that we don't typically do a whole lot of ourselves. So that's more out, and then there's some really complicated streets, like State Street downtown, for example, that would require outside consultant help as well. So
Great. No, that's
it's a mix of our own resources and external.
Yeah, no, the ballpark amount you gave is helpful. I just have no concept of what that would be. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Roth. Are there any other questions from the committee? Okay, for the record, I'd like to note that President Walker Myers has joined the call. Welcome. If there are no further questions, we'll move on to item 2. So Mr. Zinn, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Let me pull up my note on this here real quick. Okay, so this is the order authorizing the city engineer to construct new sidewalks per section 27-102. The section 27-102 requires a vote of the full board of alders when the city chooses to put in a new sidewalk in the right of way. Generally speaking, new sidewalks, you've approved a number of them, not too many of them in my time here, but they've usually been in conjunction with a state grant or something of that nature. Or I remember we were doing one on Upper Whaley by the Pond Lily Reserve, Nature Preserve up there. We were accepting it as part of a state program. We're also doing a sidewalk on the boulevard that was approved. The construction of that was approved along with accepting the funding. This is a filing that's coming actually out of the Resource Allocation Committee, looking at 4 very small stretches of missing sidewalk in different parts of the city. We're kind of dipping our toes in here, seeing how this goes. We have also a lot of existing sidewalk, 373 miles of that we have to maintain and repair. So I think we're really looking at small sections that are in dense neighborhoods in particular, or part of other assets such as the Mill River Trail. In close proximity to public transit. So the installations are on the south side of Ford Street, which is a small section of discontinuous sidewalk. Sherman Parkway also has one as well. There's both of these places, I believe, have well-worn, dirt paths, if you will. Exchange Street near Haven Street is just a few feet near a project that Save the Sound is doing in collaboration with the city, and I believe they have state funding. It's also part of the Mill River Trail, so just to extend the sidewalk a little bit to connect into that. Emerson Street near Valley Street, there's a bus stop, and this is to kind of provide a little bit of sidewalk for people to stop there. So these are fairly short. We've sort of estimated it grossly at about $25,000. That can change a little bit once we get in there and really, but that's a sense of the scale of what we're looking at here. And so with that, I'll see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Zinn. I think we're always looking to fix our sidewalks. I was actually out for a walk today, and there's many that have been there since I was a little girl, believe it or not. So any sidewalk repair is great for the city, not only for safety, but for walkability, which is something that we push to do and get people outdoors. So thanks for your work with that. At this time, I'll welcome any questions from the committee, beginning with my vice chair, Alder DeCola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Zinn, these areas that we're going to be putting sidewalks in, are they in front of properties that will then clear them when it snows? Or these are in areas where Louisville City will have to maintain them?
I believe all of them, with the exception of Exchange Street, are in front of private property owners. I believe Exchange Street is next to Martinez School. But that one's a particularly short section, 20, 30 feet or something like that. So it would be it would be per ordinance, it is the responsibility of the property owner to maintain the sidewalk, and that's both clearing it and also maintaining the sidewalk itself. The Board of Alders may choose from time to time to authorize funds to repair sidewalks in the city. And that's the sort of the aegis under which this happens. But yes, by and large, yes, the property, adjacent property owner is responsible, and we expect that to be the case here going forward.
All right, so that means we'll at least give them a letter of notice that till they understand now that it's a sidewalk, it's got to be clear. Where was a dirt path, that was a gray area, do you shovel it or not? So the saying is, so we don't have somebody getting a fine that they said they didn't know. So the residents are just made aware of their responsibility. That's where I'm
Yep.
really going with this. Thank you.
Yeah, and I believe these are requests that have come to the Resource Allocation Committee from the alders. And at least the ones on Ford, Sherman, and Emerson. And those, I would imagine the alders have also heard from the residents, and that's probably where they came from. So I'm, I defer to the alders themselves if they wish to comment on it, but that is my understanding.
Thank you, Mr. Zinn, and thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I need to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder DeCola. Alder Antunes, any questions?
Fortunately, there are very little sidewalks in my ward, so I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Alder Roth.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Giovanni. I have no questions, just thank you for helping build sidewalks where there aren't any so that people can get around more safely.
Alder Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Alder DeCola's question, the one little sliver on Ford Street is in front of a city sliver lot. And I'm trying to see if the city will sell that to or if the adjoining property owner would buy that, but it's like 15 or 20 feet. And then the other stretch on Sherman is private property. I think we'll be really thrilled to have sidewalk, even if it means a little bit more shoveling. I have no questions for Mr. Zinn. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Alder Singh.
I have no question, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Alder Smith.
Question, Madam Chair, thank you.
Okay, I'll just ask one more time if there are any further questions from the committee. Okay. Mr. Zinn, thank you again. Appreciate it. All the work you do, etc. At this time, I will open up items 1 and 2 to public testimony. So if there is anyone from the public that would like to testify for items 1 or 2, please raise your hand. For a second time, is there anyone from the public that would like to testify for items 1 and 2? And for a third time, is there any public testimony for these 2 items? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, do I hear a motion from the committee?
I move to close the public portion of this hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on closing the public portion? Seeing none, let's take a vote to close the public portion. I am a yay. Vice Chair?
Yes.
Alder Antunes?
Yes.
Alder Roth?
Yes.
Alder Winter?
Yes.
Alder Singh?
Yes.
Alder Smith? It's official. The public portion is officially closed. So before we begin the workshop, it's probably best for us to vote on items 1 and 2 and then move on to the workshop. So do I hear a motion to move the item?
I move item 1.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Any discussion for item 1? Yep. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is really important that they are seeking the state money to do this. These are corridors that are need a lot of improvement from an infrastructure perspective to make it safer for pedestrians and cyclists and everyone. And so it's great to be taking advantage of this opportunity and use the state money to do this. So I would encourage everyone to vote in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Roth. Any other committee members discussion? Okay. I too encourage my colleagues to vote in favor of this item. I know for the section that is listed for my ward, it's something that's been asked for probably 2-3 years, and making safe roads is also encouraging for pedestrians and cyclists. Our roads, unfortunately, are based on cars and drivers, and we've seen a lot of pedestrian accidents, and folks want to enjoy the outdoors. So this is something important, and it's a step forward to building safety as well as for pedestrians to enjoy their walks and going to the parks and being able to cross a busy intersection safely. So Giovanni, thanks again for your hard work. And again, I encourage my colleagues to support this item. At this point, we will take a vote. All in favor of passing number 1, say yay. I will call your name. Alder DeCola.
Yay.
Alder Antunes.
Yes.
Alder Roth.
Yes.
Alder Winter.
Yes.
Alder Singh.
Yes.
Alder Smith. The yeas have it. The item passes.
I move item 2.
Second.
Item 2 has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Please raise your hand. Oh, go ahead, Alder Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just speak to the need for these short stretches to be filled in, and the feeling of neglect that residents have repeatedly communicated to me about having, pieces of Mr. Zinn said, pieces of a densely populated area in the middle of a city, with folks walking to school or walking to work or walking wherever on a dirt path. And that this will really mean a lot to making some of these overlooked corners of the city look and feel cared for again. So I urge my colleagues to support. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Winter. Any other discussion from the committee members? Okay, I don't see any. Again, I encourage my colleagues to support this item as well. Sidewalks bring people out, able to walk, get outside, where we're always pushing for exercise and, healthy living, et cetera, and walking is part of it. And to be able to do it safely is also a big part. So I encourage my colleagues to support this item. And if there are no further discussions for this, we can take a vote. Okay, I don't see any hands. So all those in favor say yay. I am in favor. Alder DeCola.
Yes.
Alder Antunes.
Yes.
Alder Roth.
Yes.
Alder Winter.
Yes.
Alder Singh.
Yes.
Alder Smith. The yeas have it. The item number 2 passes. So thank you for your votes. At this time, we can move on to item number 3, which is the workshop. And it looks, do we have our presenters? I'll just give it a couple of minutes to have our presenters enter the room. Welcome. It's always a pleasure to have you guys here and with us. I will have each of you introduce yourselves. Please state your name and address for the record, please. And Ms. Khan, do you want to begin?
I'd love to. Thank you, Alder Festa, Chair Festa. I'm Laura Kahn. I live at 54 Cleveland Road, and I chair the Environmental Advisory Council.
I see Kathy Fay.
Good evening. It's always a pleasure to attend these meetings, and I'm the Secretary of the Environmental Advisory Council. Thank you very much for holding this workshop.
Name and address.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Alder. Name and address for the record.
Oh, my apologies. Kathy Fay, 61 Springside Avenue.
Thank you. I see a Miguel Cartagena. Sorry, I don't see your full name on there.
Oh, can you see me?
I can't see you, but I see
Oh.
part of your name.
Hold
Just
up. Miguel
yep.
Cartagena. Hold up.
Oh, there you are.
How are you doing? Good evening, everyone. My name is Miguel Cartagena. I was at the meeting Tuesday, Superintendent of Public Works. I live at 65 Palmieri Avenue in Mr. Toombs' ward. One day I got to meet you, Mr. Toombs.
Welcome. Pierre Barber, name and address for the record. Mr. Barber? There you are.
Pierre Barber, I'm the Executive Director of the Solid Waste Authority. I live at 7 Washington Circle, Unionville, Connecticut.
Welcome. Jeff Simon, name and address for the record.
Yes, Jeff Simon. I'm from Brantford, Connecticut. I'm actually not here for the EAC, and it says EAC on there. I'm actually with the Solid Waste and Recycling Authority as well.
Welcome. And I see Lynn Bonnet, name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Lynn Bonnet. I live in New Haven, 675 Townsend Avenue. I'm a participant in the GC3 state meetings about climate change and also attended a lot of the CCSMM materials management meetings that the Commissioner of DEEP was holding with municipalities.
Great, welcome. Laura, would you like to start?
Sure, I'd be delighted. So your esteemed colleague, Alder DeCola, your vice chair, recommended that we need to have this meeting because he realizes that it's time for a public reckoning about waste. And so here we are. So I sent, the EAC sent a letter that listed some topics we might discuss this evening. And I'm sure you all know a lot more about all of these than I do, and you know a lot more topics. I'll just go through my list quickly, which has expanded a bit since I sent the letter. So some time ago, we started discussing pay-as-you-throw garbage discarding. There's more than one way to do this. You could do it by weight. You could do it by purchase of bags to put the garbage in. What it does is discourage people from throwing things in garbage and encourages people to find other uses for things and think before they throw things out. So Cheryl Baldwin of DEEP and Pierre Barber and Jeff Simon and a lot of other people here can tell you a lot more about that stuff, all the people from DPW, et cetera. But I'll just give you a quick rundown. Curbside textile and shoe recycling. I know the city is considering doing that and started looking into it before the pandemic. Hamden has a system that they started before the pandemic whereby a private contractor would give people pink bags and they would come and pick them up curbside. Recycling education, we need to do a lot more of that. I know Pierre Barber and Jeff Simon are on it. And I know Cheryl Baldwin is doing Trash Tuesdays YouTubes. She was planning on going from municipality to municipality and going to libraries and doing education, but then the pandemic came, so she'll get back to it. pardon me. There are state recycling programs for bottles, paint, mattresses, and motor oil. I believe those are the only 4 things. And we need to continuously remind people about these things because not everybody knows about it. And I don't know about you, but I've seen abandoned mattresses and abandoned paint cans all over the place. And yeah, so since we have, for instance, a company, Safety Clean Systems, that recycles motor oil in New Haven, perhaps they would contribute to a campaign to remind people that Connecticut has a state program for that. If they're sending trucks around, they should have big signs on their trucks. If they could post signs, they could do all kinds of things. We could confer with them and ask them. I'm sure they'd be happy to do it. They could do a billboard, not a digital billboard, a billboard, whatever. Anyway, let's see. Anstress Farwell, who should be coming soon, reminded us that we need to have access for all residents to the waste transfer station. For people without private vehicles, it's very difficult to get to the waste transfer station to do away with things like shoes and textiles and other household garbage that doesn't fit in one's bin. So we need to be cognizant of that. I know you can call for a bulk waste pickup, but anyway, yeah, things like that. If you don't have that much stuff, you don't want to do that. We need to be reminding people to avoid plastic, especially single-use plastic. We're doing pretty well we got rid of straws, and I think we're getting rid of some plastic food containers, but we need to work on that more. I know there is a composting program in New Haven. Domingo Medina has a Peels and Wheels program, and he picks up from some neighborhoods, but other neighborhoods you can drop off, and it's a pay program. We should be encouraging a pilot program to pick up compost at houses if we can find a way to do it. I don't know how we could do it, but it's worth looking into. Littering, this was not on my original list, but littering is a problem. A friend of mine who's a librarian remembers the "Give a Hoot, Don't Pollute" owl signs and TV ads from many years ago. I see some of you nodding. Yes, we need to do that again. Maybe we need to have signs about fines for littering. Maybe we need to have, I don't know, a wall of shame where people can post photos of litter they see. I know Kathy Hurley at DPW is wonderful when you post litter problems on SeeClickFix. She gets them taken care of, but we need to re-educate people so that they don't just throw things out of their cars. I saw someone doing that today, and or throw things on the street as they're walking by. We need to discourage people from using balloons and plastic bags outside. I can't tell you how many of these things I've seen in trees lately. There is a state statute against releasing more than 10 balloons at once, but even one balloon in a tree is a threat to wildlife. It's not attractive. It's unnecessary. We should be able to celebrate with other things than tying balloons to places where they just come untied and end up flying away and choking sea life or hanging around in our trees. It's really not pretty. Let's see, I'm almost at the end. You know, there's a bottle bill going through the state legislature, HB 1037, and it calls for modernization of the bottle redemption system. The redemption fee will be increased per bottle from 5 to 10 cents. There will be more kinds of containers, bottles redeemed. The handling fee per bottle will increase, and there will be more what are called reverse vending machines, which are the machines you put the bottle in and you get your money out of, or you get a token that gets you money. And I think the last thing I will talk about is I thought there was a consortium of New England states working on a minimum recycled glass content in wine and liquor bottles. And I don't know what happened to it. I know some people were working on it a while ago, but I hope we continue that. And yeah, so I think that's it. If anybody has any questions, please ask them. I'm sure there are people here who know a lot more about all this stuff than I do and can tell you a lot more. Thank you very much for holding this public workshop.
Thank you, Ms. Khan, and thank you for all the work that you do. This is important for our environment and for future generations too. I just want to note for the record that Rebecca Bombero is here from the city. Rebecca, your name and address for the record, if you plan on speaking.
I'm Rebecca Bombero, the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer. I live at 122 West Rock Avenue in New Haven.
Thank you. Who wants to be next from the panel to speak? Don't all raise your hand at the same time. Anyone want to add anything to what Ms. Khan has said? Anything to, help guide us as well with procedures, policies, or helping with the state? I know we can all be doing more to educate and spread the word on how to properly recycle. And maybe this is something that we need also the Board of Ed involved with, because, it starts with young kids and we need to educate them from, the time they're little tots. So maybe working with some kind of program to educate our children on how to properly recycle, because once you get the message to kids, they bring the message home and make their parents, hopefully, or make their households, hopefully, recycle properly or recycle in general. And hopefully even the littering part can be educational. So something with that. Yes, I'll start with Mr. Barber. I see two hands up. Mr. Barber, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for being here. And thank you, Laura, for your presentation. These are all important questions as far as waste and waste management, waste reduction. I'll just speak on behalf of the Solid Waste Authority. The pay-as-you-throw program, that's something that has been bantered around and kicked around for a number of years. I can't speak to, where it is or is not. It's been presented a number of times to various groups across administrations. So it's something that has been effective in some smaller communities. I don't really have context as far as where that discussion is now with the city. But as you mentioned, textile recycling and mattress recycling, those I can speak to. Many of the smaller towns do, and some medium-sized cities do contract with textile recyclers to deliver, pick up from curbside and deliver their recyclables to recycling processing facilities. Textile recycling as a collection in the city of New Haven would require another bag or another container. And a lot of times, because of the way that the city is configured in a lot of areas, the promotion of bags on the street could lead to some other problems. So I think before it's examined for the city, I think, and I can't speak for Public Works, I know I've had some conversations in that realm. You have to look at some of the unanticipated problems that would cause people going through bags and ripping bags while they're put out and for collection, getting routes properly maintained so you cover the entire city. All things that can be done and overcome. But what works in in some areas may not work in other areas or other towns. So, all of this stuff, all the things that you mentioned are are management type of issues, but important nonetheless. As far as we're trying to promote textile recycling, as you know, Laura, and we're trying to have folks bring their textiles. We've seen a moniker of success of folks coming into the transfer station, and we want to see more. We want to have more events where textile recycling and all those other non-household recyclables are brought to different areas of the city, and that was the impetus behind us promoting our hometown recycling day, which did have we did have some success. So outside of having a managed every day or every week collection of these items, like textiles or mattresses, what we do, or what we're trying to get out in other areas of the city and have these events in various spots, so it's easier for folks who don't have transportation to the far side of the city where the transfer station is. And one thing I do want to mention that's on here is that it says that there's problems with access for all residents to the transfer station. And in working with DPW, we've opened up the transfer station to all residents. Folks who don't have transportation there, I know that's a problem, and that I don't think that's something that can be solved in this discussion. But we are trying to make it more accessible and try to make it less cumbersome for folks to utilize the services. So the expansion of our services, we're trying to get folks to, not put their stuff out or wait to bring their recyclables or wait to bring their electronics. So having these events outside in the city and other areas of the city, and plus our Earth Day promotions, we're trying to get those things done to increase our source reduction.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Before we continue, I see other hands up, but I'm going to call on our Deputy CAO to see if Ms. Bombera has any comments. I know you said you have a poster that you'd like to share. Is that correct?
Yes. You had mentioned engaging kids, and it actually reminded me of a great poster contest we had held a few years back. Actually, it's many years back now, 5 already. Alder Smith, I think, might remember this. I think she was on our judging committee for it. And it's a great opportunity to engage kids. And I think it's something we can partner with the Environmental Advisory Council to bring back probably for next school year, because we're at the very end of the year and testing is consuming their time right now. But it's just, a great opportunity. We are definitely working on many of the things that the Environmental Policy Council has indicated. Just a reminder, if you guys do not have these what's in, what's out stickers on the bins in your neighborhood, happy to work with neighborhood groups to help roll them out to reinforce what's in and what's out in our recycling. Unfortunately, when we get dirty pulls and there's a lot of contamination in recycling, it defeats the purpose because the load is no longer valuable as recyclables. We're also working to bring back some of the warning tickets that get posted on your bins when you have contaminated recycling or are not following procedures. Currently revising them a little bit, and we'll get them reprinted so that we can reinforce some of these best practices. I do have that ugly pink bag on my desk. It's been sitting here for quite some time, so I can review the proposal from that company. Unfortunately, the initial terms that they presented were not necessarily things that the city could meet, but that does not mean we can't negotiate favorable terms. And as everybody indicated, pay as you throw, it comes back time and time again. Do want to look at it again. But as Pierre noted, there are not many case studies of large, dense municipalities with high levels of renters where it has been implemented. So that's one challenge that we're going to have to spend a lot of time thinking about in order to see if it would work in New Haven. So happy to answer any questions, but love the ideas and look forward to collaborating on another poster contest because they're really enjoyable and it helps reinforce with kids these messages.
Thank you for that. And let's keep in mind that we may not be able to introduce it in school now, but there's plenty of summer camps that are happening, and maybe that might be an opportunity to introduce the children to that poster and maybe have them do a poster contest. But thank you for showing us that. And before I open it up to the committee, I see Ms. Bonnet's hand up. Go ahead, Ms. Bonnet, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, I'm sure. Yeah, so I just wanted to say I was looking forward to this meeting more from the point of view of learning what the city is doing, because they really don't have any information about that. And from attending the CCSMM meetings were facilitated by Commissioner Dykes, you know, I think about half of the towns in Connecticut now are members of this organization. And she's really challenged cities to come up with pilot projects to deal with the 4 areas that they identified, which are extended producer responsibility, which is, you know, tasking the products that you buy, making sure that they're disposable or reusable in some way. Organics diversion, which, you know, the organics make up 40% of our waste. So that's an important component. And also increased recycling, which I think that you're already discussing quite a bit. And then unit-based pricing. So those are the 4 areas that the state is facilitating municipalities to focus on. I just I'm kind of confused about what's happening in New Haven. You know, that a lot of the municipalities are initiating pilot projects. They're not saying, oh, we have this program, we're going to do the whole city and see what happens. They're picking neighborhoods where they think something might work and trying it, and then doing metrics on what the problems are, how it's going to turn out. So I think the approach is a lot more pilot testing and in different neighborhoods. And I appreciate what Becky Bombero is saying with renting neighborhoods. I mean, you know, one thing I always was concerned about was that if unit pricing came and someone had something heavy, you know, what keeps them from dumping it on somebody else's garbage, you know, and things like that. So I don't, you know, I mean, I've been told that that's not an issue, but I could perceive that it might be an issue. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that are challenges in a community like New Haven, but certainly, you know, given that we have such different discrete neighborhoods, it offers an opportunity to test out some of these ideas and see how they work. Particularly, so I think Branford is doing organics pickup curbside in a dense area where they don't have to travel long miles to get the organics, and they're providing the, you know, containers where people put their wet garbage, a little bit like what Domingo does on his bicycle. But you know, Domingo's customers are paid customers, and he gives them compost, and you know, he has discrete ways of dealing with it. But so if the city's going to do that, they'd have to have a place to compost and you know, manage all of that. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm more not in the point of view of telling the city what to do. I just want to know what the city is doing. And you know, in all the meetings I attended, I wasn't aware that anyone from New Haven was attending those meetings. You know, maybe they're looking at recordings or maybe I was just unaware because I'm not representing the city of New Haven. It's just an interest of mine. So I'll be quiet now. Thank you.
No, thank you. You bring up some good points, and they're always appreciated. You reminded me of Hamden doing bulk pickup. They have stopped it, but maybe that's something we should consider as a seasonal thing. Maybe do a 2-week stint, particularly for the curbside pickup that we mentioned with folks that don't have a vehicle to go down to the transfer station, et cetera. Maybe we can have a week in the spring and a week in the fall, or something dedicated just for that type of pickup. I know funding is always a concern, and we have to keep that in mind. And I believe that's why Hamden actually got rid of it, but it was something that was working and maybe something to consider. Is there anyone from the panel that would like to add anything before I move on to the committee? Okay. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Miguel. You're on mute.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. Here, Rebecca, how you doing? Honda, how you doing if you're listening? Well, I've been dealing with this issue, as you know, Pierre, 25 years. I've been on the ground, and since those stickers started till now, we're still having these same issues. We just don't find a resolution. But nobody seems to talk about enforcement, because that's where our problem lies. There's got to be some kind of enforcement. I know Honda was by herself for a while. We're hired now. Hopefully things will get better, but we have to think about some enforcement, fines or something in this town. And that's the problem I see. That's never, I don't know if it's taboo to say it but you want to charge it for garbage, can we find them? Because these people are just not getting it. And if we don't hit them where it hurts, they probably never will. That's just my thing, being out here every day dealing with this issue. Trust me, it's not easy. We educate, and the turnaround here with renters is unbelievable. So you get a new crew and a new apartment, they're going next month, and now you're dealing with the same thing again. You know what I mean? Could it be forced on the landlords? And I'm saying it might be hurting myself because I do own a little property, but if I have to do it, then, so be it.
Thank you, sir, for bringing that up. You're right. Yes, Ms. Fay?
Well, I think that he brought up a really good point. New Haven used to have, at least for illegal dumping, they had officers, in the police force that were, or at least an officer that really had illegal dumping as their focus. So I'm not saying that I want that. I'm just saying that at that time, enforcement was taken really seriously. And I don't know whether illegal dumping now is better or worse than back then. There may have been really particular reasons why we had that. But I do think I do think that that's a really good point, is that education and enforcement kind of go, they're the two sides of the coin in terms of public awareness and doing the right thing. And I also just wanted to mention that there are funders that fund things like reducing floatables that end up in Long Island Sound. And so there's potential for projects that might be partnerships of the city with local neighborhood groups or things like that. That at Neighborhood Housing Services, we do a lot of cleanups because of that. But I don't know that that has to just be such a little local thing. It might be something that could be done on a citywide basis. And that's about it. I'm just adding to some of the stuff that other people said. I didn't really come with any particular thing that I wanted to say.
It's very helpful, and it's a conversation to be had, and it's brainstorming on different ideas. So thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Cut. Go ahead.
I forgot to add one thing. We're talking about pilot programs. We're planning to roll out, I know, talk to Becky about it. Right now, we do 6 refuse, 4 recycling every day. So it's kind of like intertwined, and this is why you see the contaminated, blues left behind. Normally we get those on the next day if there's a complaint or something like that. But we're gonna roll out a 10 and 10 system to at least alleviate seeing the eyesores on the blue cans when they're contaminated. So we'll roll out the recycle all trucks in the morning for recycle, and then they go back and do the second round or garbage, anything that's contaminated. It's not, how you say, helping the recycling problem, but it's at least we don't see the cans out there contaminated. Now that, and we want to sticker them too, but it's like there's a no win here. You know what I mean? But that program, we are going to start rolling it out. Obviously, the union was involved, contractual things that we had to sort out. But hopefully that'll roll out soon, and so the residents know what's going on. I'm sure they'll have that out there before we start.
Great, thank you. Keep us posted on that.
Yeah.
At this time, I'm going to open it up to the committee, and I might just switch things around a little bit. I will start with my vice chair first. Alder DeCola, do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, like I emphasized to the committee here, that we have to start a conversation about where we're going, because our recycling will end up costing us more money eventually. We need the state to really step up and decide what they want to do with trash through the whole state. Honestly, the state dropped the ball, and that's why we have single stream and other things. It puts a burden on our city. That's why other private haulers are trying to get into the game, because more municipality landfills are filling up. A lot of garbage eventually have to be transported out of the state, not within the state. We have many issues, and I'm glad that we have a group right here discussing it. We will have other discussions about it, but this is the starting point that we need to take this serious for our residents in New Haven and for the whole state. And sooner or later, we're going to have to push it to the state delegation, the whole state delegation, to really make a decision where they want to go for the future of healthier trash places to go with it. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder DeCola. I'm actually going to jump ahead and go to Alder Smith, because I saw her hand up, and Alder Smith's name came up as well. So go ahead, Alder Smith.
Madam Chair, but I believe Alder Rothgans was up before mine.
That's okay.
That's why we go in reverse order, but
I'm going in reverse order right now.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chair. I'm glad that this conversation is happening. And I want to say thank you, Becky, for showing that poster. It's actually was a program that I started at Public Works, which called Pick It Up. Created it because, as being the inspector there, I've seen there was a lot of litter that was going on, and it was a way of educating. It was a way of educating our youth from the school system on up to the adults. As you said, when the young people hear about recycling, they take these things home. Previously in years, we used to have a recycling coordinator that was at the Department of Public Works, who did all of the recycling education. But when we left, when that position got taken away, it was on to myself to create an education portion to educate the people. Now, Mike said something very important, in which we all really need to take notice on. The only way that we're going to be able to curb all of this illegal littering, and littering is basically comes by education. And the education starts with the inspectors that need to educate. I believe we did a lot of education out here on many, many different instances and so on. And the way that we was curbing when I was working for the Department of Public Works, you have to find a way to run with the trash trucks run. So I will run on a schedule where the trash trucks will run at. If there's a violation, I will hit them with the violations. And the only way that the residents is going to learn is through fines and penalties. That's the reason why the ordinance was set. And if the rule that was broken that they have to adhere to, if you don't adhere to, you get a warning. From the warnings, you get citations. And we need to go back to stick to what the city ordinance is and to enforce the city ordinance as if as it was placed for the city. Now, as far as trash, pay as you go, throw, I'm not a great fan of that. Like Pierre said, that's more or less for the suburban areas. And I'm not a fan of it because we're paying taxes already in the city of New Haven. You're adding another level of finance to the residents. And it's, to me, it's called double jeopardy. So if we continue with the enforcement level of really starting to enforce, and that's what we really have to dig deep down on, is to enforce. We've educated enough. These people are well aware of what it is. They have many, and Becky showed a couple of pieces of the flyers, which was stated, those things, I've done them all, right? Revamp them or whatever. I've done them all. I went to every level of extent of creating the kids to create a live recording on picking up your trash and so on. And I think we've played it several places with, whenever there was a movie in the park, it was played during that time. So they have been really educated on these things, but we as a city has to now begin to enforce these issues that are happening. And yes, you're going to need more enforcement officers to do that. And I think we'll see a big change in the city and with the litter population. Yes, we did at one point had a litter officer. That was like 15, 20 years back when that officer was out. But it's going to take a lot. If you get these inspectors in place, you wouldn't have to worry about getting a police officer from doing policing to police trash, because you'll have your inspectors to police the trash. And they will police these private haulers, as Pierre know. He sent me on many instances to go find these private haulers that was not bringing their trash back to the department the way that they was supposed to. And also not just that, on businesses and restaurants and all of that. You would have all of that stuff incorporated with the safety plans and all of that if we just had those people in place. And I think that's what needs to happen. People are educated. We just probably need to put it on news media to let folks know, hey, the city is not playing anymore with this litter. You know, if you see somebody littering on the street, yes, the police can enforce that. That's, you know, illegal littering there. They can give them a ticket for littering. I know I've left Arizona. If you just put a piece of gum on the sidewalk, you get a $500 ticket. So, you know, we just need to start, you know, being very vigilant and enforcing these issues in which that goes on into this city. And I think we can make a big change. We have the tools. We just have to utilize it. Thank you, Madam Chair, for this time.
Thank you, Alder Smith. I'm going to go backwards. So Alder Singh, do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any question, but the comment that I have, I'm supporting of Alder Smith. I don't think pay as you go would be a good way to do this, because if we started that, we're gonna have more illegal dumping and trash bags littering all over the city. And then as an alder, I'm gonna have to call LCI to, you know, to start to address this up, and it falls back on the city. So I don't think that's a good idea, in my opinion, pay as you go. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Singh. Alder Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are there any large cities in Connecticut that do pay as you throw? For some reason, I have a memory that someone from Waterbury had discussed it, but maybe that was just.
There are no large cities in Connecticut that have implemented. I believe there are 2 small towns in Connecticut that are in pilot phase, but the research is quite limited among large scale municipalities and cities, especially those with high levels of renters.
Okay, so the answer is no. It's just small towns.
There might be a large city in Germany, but I have not been able to get it in English yet on that case study.
Okay. And the budget this year says we're paying $3 million for trash at the transfer station, is that the number for our tipping fees?
Off the top of my head, if that's what you say is the number that would be tipping for both trash and recycling.
Yeah, recycling has its own line for 350,000. So Alder DeCola had mentioned, recycling getting more expensive. Is it cheaper pound for pound for things to be recycled? And what is the savings there? Just to
Pierre, why don't you take that one so I don't.
Yeah, it is cheap. It is cheaper for recycling. Trash is tipped at $92 plus per ton, and recycling is tipped at $45 per ton. A significant savings, approaching $50 per ton. So significant tax dollars saved.
Not as good as it was, 10 years ago, but still much, much better to recycle.
Yeah, a few years ago, the city was actually getting a $40 rebate, as was other towns, maybe not in the $40 range, but I know Stanford, which is one of the best recycling towns in the state, they went from getting a reimbursement for the recyclables to their budget for recycling over $300,000. So everything is affected by the recycling market, which has tanked over the past few years. So despite having, the greatest of intentions and pushing recycling and to get folks to recycle, the end market is really what is the driving force of how we can keep the recycling going and keep the rates up.
And historically, how has the recycling rate gone up or down in terms of volume?
In terms of volume, our city's at approximately 17%. That has steadily gone up since the advent of the Solid Waste Authority, and the real driving force was the phasing in of the blue toters, which were garbage at one time, or garbage toters, but we turned it to long ago to recycling toters. So we've gone from 9% at that time, back in, I think it was 2007. We're now at 17%.
Okay. And then Lynn had mentioned that of the trash, 40% of it, the state estimates is organic.
Yeah, the last study I saw didn't put it at 40%, but it is a significant percentage of our garbage. A lot of it is paper, but the majority weight is organic.
And it's also very heavy, the organics.
Organics is very heavy, and especially in inclement weather, you start to pay for the water that's actually absorbed into the garbage. So, and to Lynn's point, organic would be the next greatest thing that our city could look into, as far as getting the cost of waste down, because as Alder DeCola has stated, capacity within the state is diminishing, which means our costs are going up. So over the next 5 years, it's estimated the state will spend us included, will spend $25 million more for the same amount of waste that we're tipping today.
So just so I can clarify, so 40% of the weight of the garbage is organic, we think, or something in that neighborhood?
Yeah, something in that neighborhood.
And the tipping fees are by weight. So we're spending well over $1 million sending organic waste to get incinerated.
When it could actually be going to the anaerobic digester in Southington. But again, like anything else, it is the management. We have a transfer station. We don't have a volume reduction facility. So pulling the organics out after it's tipped is impossible. It's what we're we're talking about today, which is getting that weight out of the stream before it's picked up.
Right. So having like another bin, potentially like a compost bin to be collected.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
And in some of the denser areas, there's lots of successful programs that have separate toters. I'm not saying that it can't be done. Out in California has a lot of programs where you get a blue toter, get a brown toter, and you get a green toter. And if you put that green toter out full of organics, you're taking that much out of the waste stream. And it can be done. It's a management and it's a spatial problem. If you have an apartment building that has 5 units, now you have to have 3 toters per unit, and you line 15 toters up in front of your building. That becomes problematic, but then you have to alternate days. You collect your waste on one day, then you collect your organics on another day, then you collect your recycling on another day. That becomes a logistical problem and a personnel issue and a vehicle issue. So all can be done, but it's not done easily, but it can and should be done, because the way that everything is trending towards things becoming a lot more expensive for all.
and how does the cost of disposing of organic material to something like an anaerobic digester compare to tipping fees for trash and recyclables?
I don't have the cost for it. I know it's significantly less, and it's quite possible that you might even get a rebate, because you can't run the digester without the waste.
Right. It eats the food.
Right. So, if you have this fuel source that's readily available and we can get it going there. One thought that we had a while ago is we operate the commercial kitchen in New Haven. The commercial kitchen, which feeds all the schools. We should at least have a conversation with the Board of Ed to start there and see if we can get a vehicle to make that one run to the anaerobic digester. That would be my suggestion, just as a start, to see how organics can be managed more effectively.
I think that's a great suggestion. I feel like with a lot of these things, it is up to the city and the Board of Ed to model behavior, like Chair Fester was saying, for students. And when I go to city events, I rarely see recycling containers. And in other places I've lived, there's like a set, you can say, hey, we're having a city event, and like they'll have the recycling container, the compost container, the trash container, and it's just like, it's all ready to go. You pick up the kit. And when we have events at City Hall, I think I usually just see trash containers. And if I do see recycling containers, it's not clearly labeled. It's not clearly signaled, like this is a blue container with recycling written in white letters. So I feel like there is a lot that the city could do to start to take the lead on having consistent recycling and consistent composting at events. And I don't feel like I see that right now. With illegal dumping, is it still, so can we just briefly, like, you're a resident, you want to do a bulk trash pickup, is it still the case that you have to go to DPW in person to make an appointment, or can that be done electronically or over the phone now?
I believe you have to pick up your coupon or in person to actually utilize the transfer station, and that was when you would make your appointment. I'm not sure. I can't speak 100% to the process. I know during the pandemic, a lot of folks um, call into DPW, and I believe they get Mike, maybe you can speak to this. They can get their appointment over the phone, but I think there's a matter of receiving payment, et cetera, et cetera.
Is that something that Ms. Bombero or Mr. Cartagena could address? What is the current process? Is that's
For the bulk pickup?
for bulk pickup? Yeah, how does one arrange it?
Bulk pickup, I think you can go to the office. You can't go physically in. You get the paper, and they send you something. You drop it off in there, and then they do it by email. I guess they email them back. This is the last time because I'm not there in the morning. I don't see their process. But that's what I'm thinking. They still do it now.
So one challenge that we have with bulk trash pickups is we try to verify residency so that the absentee landlords don't abuse the system.
Right.
We've been toying with ideas that we might be able to use to circumvent the in-person visit to verify that, but haven't come up with a great solution yet.
And I'll just add to Becky's point. You know, getting a bulk appointment is a valuable thing, and it is set up, or it can be abused. We've seen abuses in the past.
So how do we currently verify identity? Part of it is that you're willing to go there in person.
The standard forms of identification, your utility bill for your address, with address, anything that would be used to validate your address in your name, as opposed to, Betty Boop LLC at, you laugh, that was an actual LLC at one point. I don't think it is anymore, but it was a terrible landlord as well. But yes, this way we don't have the absentee landlords abusing it.
I asked it just seems like on the one hand, we have this incredible illegal dumping problem, but on the other hand, like, don't we want to make it as easy as possible for someone to do it the right thing, do the thing the right way rather? And I think I thought after the pandemic, we would have probably switched to some way of verifying things without an in-person visit. It just seems like we ought to be able to come up with a system to email something in, right? You can email in your bill and your driver's license and set up an appointment that way. And that would be probably less administrative work as well, if things have to then be converted from paper to digital by city staff, if things are being submitted on paper.
We'll continue to review.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side of it, I know there's been some discussion about using cameras to try to catch people who are serially illegal dumping or have illegal dumping in some locations. Is that a reality? Because I can name off the top of my head at least 2 locations in my ward where it's like mushrooms, right? They pop up every week and it's the same locations, it's the same spots, and
the same people too.
It may be the same people, and I hate to say it, but I think it feels like a fact of life for people. And I get it. We can't afford to station a police officer there, but don't we have the technology to do something about these things?
So unfortunately, many of these locations don't have electric and data, which is one of our requirements on cameras. We are working on figuring out some solar cellular options that would alleviate those problems, so we can install more mobile cameras that don't require such infrastructure. But yeah, it's always the spots that have no data and electric that are hot areas.
What about like a ring camera type device? That doesn't require electrical, does it? Like that has a battery and.
It needs to connect to your Wi-Fi.
Okay, but if it was but so like some of the schools, for example, have these Wi-Fi zones. I'm just thinking about like a location in my ward that's a few blocks from Amistad High School, or yeah, I guess I'm thinking like, are there ways to at least get around one of these problems?
Definitely something we're looking into, and the Wi-Fi zones at school was not on my list of ways to address it, but it got added to it, so.
Okay, well, I appreciate you all are looking into it.
I think this is a conversation that we need to continue regarding this illegal dumping because it's happening throughout the city. And as Alder Winter stated, there are pop-up areas that are consistent with dumping. But, for now, Alder Winter, if you don't mind, I'm going to move on to.
Thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you. You brought up some good points and ones that are important for further discussion and maybe thought for the council as well. But when you were talking about the different bins, et cetera, Italy does that. My in-laws who live in Italy, they have different bins outside of their condo complex, and inside they have special bags. And, Wednesdays is one thing, Thursdays is another. And it was similar to what Mr. Barber had mentioned. So I think that's something possibly to consider, although again, costly, but as it was mentioned earlier, the cost of recycling will go up, but also for good reason and possibly get money back. But at this point, I will move on to Alder Roth.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to everyone who's spoken. I have just a few follow-ups from some points some other people raised, and then just a few additional items. One, just getting back to the bulk trash pickup, it does seem like, as someone, I don't drive, so like it's hard to do. Couldn't the verification be done when the people come to pick it up, that the person has to be there, and if they are not who they say, they get charged a fee at the time? Would that be a way you could address it?
Peggy?
Go for it, Miguel.
Oh, no. I don't know about that part. I mean, as far as people want to miss work and those issues, I mean, I don't know if that would be, the thing for them to do. But most of the time they're pretty good. The people that do come, as far as what Mr. What's his name, Winter said, that would be a great idea, Becky, probably to, verify them electronically, and that would be great for people that can't make it in. I think that's a good idea, actually.
Sure, if that, I wasn't clear if that wasn't possible somehow to do. So that obviously would be the easiest, but I guess just keep in mind perhaps the other approach if electronically the verification wouldn't work. My second follow-up to what someone said is with, I appreciated the comment about with if you had a third bin for organics, they getting crowded, but couldn't like an apartment building have a shared bin or a few shared bins? Every apartment doesn't have to have their own bin that people would just put it in, and wouldn't that reduce the problem of having too much clutter with bins?
I think anything is possible. I'm not quite sure, especially in the world of organics, where you're dealing with food items that have been, in your household, commingling it with another household or several households. But anything's possible. I think
Yeah, I mean, I used to live in a place, I guess, that there was a space with all the shared recycling things. And so I just went and put like my newspapers in the big bin. I guess it wouldn't faze me of putting my compost things in a shared bin. So again, just something to keep in mind as a possibility. And then I guess also getting to the issue, if I understood correctly, that trash costs much more for the city and organics make it heavier. I mean, I didn't know that really this until tonight. Like, and I'm guessing most people don't know that. While I very much appreciate what Alder Smith said about the need for enforcement, I also think would using the monetary incentive at all to send the message that it's costing the city when people aren't recycling. Maybe it wouldn't, but just something to keep in mind. Perhaps having that be part of the education message, the cost of putting things just in trash.
Sure. All the educational things that we've done, that the cost is right up there up front, to kind of drive home the point. We occasionally go to schools, we have environmental groups, we've gone out to community management teams. Every educational opportunity, because it's important. We're talking about dollars and cents. We're talking about saving the environment and what makes sense, but to save money by doing it. So yeah, I think that's a valid point. We try to put that right up front.
Okay, no, I appreciate your efforts, and I'm sorry, I clearly have not been paying close enough attention, but I do want to say I also do appreciate the newsletter that you all have started. I've been sharing that, and I think that's a great tool. Just two more points or questions, I guess. I appreciate what you said, that you're trying to have events more out in the community where people could drop things off who can't get into the central drop-off spot. Could there be things set up like at schools or at libraries where people brought smaller, like I'm thinking of like the Goodwill box at the fire station on Whitney Avenue, so that there could just be some places where things could be dropped off sort of scattered around the city, and then some pickups and some schedule?
Years ago, that was tried, and Miguel, you'll probably remember, or Honda, you'll probably remember the igloos that were around the city. To take in these satellite items, and unfortunately, those turned out to be not so good, because what happened was people would climb in them and pull stuff out, and you would have a mess. You would find people, some homeless actually, being inside there to keep warm during winter. So to your point, it's a good idea, but the monitoring and the management of those things become problematic. Because even in the best of times, and we struggle where we have a drop off at our own facility to make sure the contractor comes and picks those things up on a schedule, on time, because they have a tendency to overflow. And when it overflows, you'll have bags on the side of it, and then they won't pick those up, and then that brings other folks thinking that it's okay to dump there.
If I may say so, it's a challenge to monitor at the transfer station, for instance, the textile bins. So yeah, that's a problem right off the bat when you put them in remote areas, right? Monitoring.
And I guess my final question is, I wonder, the amount of litter is distressing, and like part of me like wants to think, have there been studies? Do people litter just because they don't care? Do people litter because there isn't a trash bin nearby? Or is it some combination? Do we have any sense? And so is part of the problem, are there not enough places for people to put their trash? Or is it really that people just don't care and so they litter?
It's a combination. There is, science behind how close you need to be to a trash bin. Unfortunately, the number that you would need is crazy. But to that point, you also have people that drop litter on the ground, literally, half a step from the trash barrel. So it's a two-formed problem. Everybody wants more trash bins. There is a cost to everyone you pick up, because if they're
Thank
too
you.
close
That's-
together, then there's less litter in each of them. You're picking up more of them, and there's time required for every stop.
What was the
Yeah,
cost?
I'm just thinking of, and this would be my final question, of certain areas. I mean, I don't know if near highways, if there tends to be particularly a lot of trash. I mean, I just feel like Trumbull Street, and I don't know if it's that people are coming off the highway and they throw it, if it somehow gets blown there. I don't really understand it, but like, could we, and maybe it's everywhere, but I do feel like there's more trash in certain locations. Like, could we just have identified like cleanups better, like whether it's neighborhood cleanups, organizing it, or city cleanups, like try to pinpoint what are the 10 places across the city that gather the most trash. And
Honda, we need you.
I guess once there's trash, I worry that people don't care and they just put more trash in part. Maybe that's not true either. I don't know, but
Definitely true. But we do love to sponsor neighborhood groups. You keep hearing Alder Smith's names called out because she was the queen of helping to coordinate neighborhood cleanups. But we utilize our Southern Day of Service in the spring and the fall, the Quinnipiac students in the spring. Any neighborhood group that wants to do a cleanup, we're happy to support you with bags and supplies, and we schedule the crew to come out and grab the bags as quickly as possible because garbage does have a way of multiplying.
yeah. Thank you, everyone, for your responses and for calling this session. There's clearly a lot of work to be done, and yeah, it seems good. Prioritizing things seems important, or else I worry if we don't prioritize, we won't get things done.
Thank you, Alder Roth. We had a lot of conversation tonight. There's a lot of thoughts that went into this discussion, a lot of ideas, suggestions, concerns that were mentioned. And, we welcome you back at any time to gather additional information. And I think a follow-up is probably necessary down the road to figure out what the city's intentions are. How are we going to move forward with some of these thoughts that were discussed tonight? Because it is a concern. And if we really care about our environment, then we need to give it some really, really great thought. I do see Laura Khan's hand up. If you have some final thoughts that you'd like to share, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Festa. So I do have some final thoughts. One, I believe the city is going to hire a sustainability officer, and I hope that person will be helping organize some issues about concerning waste disposal. I think we really have to set an example, all of us, by just not discarding as much stuff. Instead of using plastic silverware, take reusable bamboo flatware with you if you're going to out, or take, metal silverware that you can reuse. Yes, you have to take it home and wash it, but maybe you're running your dishwasher anyway. We have to think about all of these things. If we did pay as you throw, we could give each person a certain number of bags. And then if you had additional stuff to get rid of, you'd have to buy them. It makes people think about throwing things out. It doesn't matter whether it's costing the city right this second in more money or less money. Eventually, the whole planet is going to wind up paying for this. I don't mean to be Debbie Downer, but we are going to pay one way or another, and we had better get used to using a lot less stuff as soon as possible, and to disposing of stuff the best way possible, and being very, very careful. We do have a private a private recycling hauler in our city, and I have asked them if they would do a pilot program for composting, and they said they tried it in Milford and it was too expensive. Well, honestly, we are giving these people our resources on our riverfront to do their business. And I think they owe us. And I personally think the city should negotiate with these people to do a pilot compost pickup. That's my opinion. Anyway, I think that's it. I'll get off my soapbox. I know I'm always on the soapbox about use less, reuse more, blah, 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 buy less stuff. Anyway, thank you very, very much. And I really appreciate this.
No, you bring up good points and they're very much appreciated. And we have to remember there's also groups on social media like Buy Nothing, where you can throw it out there first and see if people will take items that you plan on discarding. And, I mean, we have to give thought to that process too, maybe enhance the social media, take advantage of it. Growing up, I used to say my mother was green before green became popular. And as a kid, I remember, we used to have to bring home our lunch bags, the brown paper bags. It didn't matter if it was wrinkled, had grease on it. We had to bring it home because if she could reuse it the next day for our lunches, it was embarrassing, but we had even the Wonder Bread bags. I mean, that woman recycled everything possible, God rest her soul. So, and as a kid, I brought that with me. And now, we do the same thing in our household. So educating the kids does help. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate this conversation. It was a lively one. A lot of stuff was mentioned, important items were mentioned, and we need to continue discussion. So, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I look forward to seeing you again soon. I will ask the committee members to stay on because we do need to adjourn. So again, thank you everyone for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, committee. Do I hear a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Okay.
Okay, it's been, the adjournment has been seconded. Any
Man, how you stop it?
What's that? Are we all set? Okay, it's been called. Everyone in agreement of adjournment. Alder DeCola,
Yes.
Alder Roth,
Yes.
Alder Winter,
Yes.
Alder Singh,
Yes.
and Alder Smith. And I as well. Good night, everyone. Thank you for your patience this evening.
Good night.
Great conversation. Good night, everyone.